many universities across the country saw the start of the academic year disrupted by unrest. Students are protesting over registration, historic debt, and accommodation shortages, among other issues. Now, the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi Pandor, met with Nsfas and the South African Union of Students over the weekend. And last night, Deputy Education Minister Buti Manamela told Newsnight that all outstanding issues could be solved, but institutions are dealing with some of the issues in their own unique way, resulting, he said, in disruptions. Let's take a listen.
We've been encouraging university management to engage with SRCs and with, the student leadership in general, because in some instances, management believes that if you ignore the students, the problems will go away. But in other instances, it has to do with the kind of terms and conditions that the universities put as it relates to returning students. So that's the question of historical debt. And therefore, institutions are dealing with those issues, in their own unique way. And in that way, we've seen, those disruptions.
Well, for reaction to that, I'm joined by Professor Adam Habib, who's the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand. Good evening, Prof. Thanks very much for your time. We don't know what went on at that meeting at the weekend, but if what Buti Manamela, the Deputy Minister, said here on Newsnight isn't government washing its hands really of the problems, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I must say, I'm very disappointed by that statement by the Deputy Minister. It's particularly a misrepresentation. So when you say universities must engage, you're assuming we're not engaging. Let me tell you what we did at WITS. We had a huge challenge. Clearly, the student at the SRC had said to us that we're worried about missing middle students who are coming in. They are struggling. Can you help us out? We actually put in place a hardship fund. Initially, we put 10 million in it. We agreed to increase that 12 million. We had a series of negotiations on the terms in which we access it. And effectively, we started to spend it. Then what happened is the student leaders came back and said, we'd like to change the terms. And what we're constantly seeing is a moving of the goalposts. Now, frankly, to suggest that universities are not engaging SRCs is irresponsible in the extreme. To be honest, I speak to my colleagues in every university. Every single one of the executives have been engaging the students. And it's not fair to actually suddenly say that we're not engaging the students. There are other kinds of misrepresentations that constantly happen about security. If there's going to be protesters that are violent, what do you expect us to do? Ideally, in a normal society, the police would come and respond. In WITS, we had an arrangement with the police that they would come 6 o'clock in the morning. They came at 10:30, and they said they got lost in traffic. Now, to be honest, in that context, the only thing you can do is rely on private security. I accept that private security shouldn't have guns and weapons. But to be honest, my responsibility is to protect the life of students and to keep the teaching program on track. If the police won't fulfill their responsibility, what do you expect executives at universities to do? And instead of helping, you create what I call is a political slender, a political shuffle, where you say one set of issues that mean different things to different stakeholders. Simply put, government and universities and student leaders and politicians should say that protests have to be peaceful. That means no stoning. That does not mean masks. That does not mean disruption of classes. And it doesn't mean destruction of property. And if anybody does that, the police are authorized to arrest them and imprison them for doing that. Because our constitution does not allow that. Don't do a political slender. Don't play games about this, because you're destabilizing our institutions.
Now, the students are arguing that they've been pushed to a position where there is no other way of dealing with this because the government is refusing to engage, or where it is engaging, it is not doing so genuinely? Do they have a case? In other words, what is at the root of the problem here?
So, look, let's take two problems. One is historic debt, and the second is accommodation. Historic debt, there's a problem. People who've got debt, most universities expect you to either cover some of the debt or all of the debt to get entrance to the next year. Government has said to us, please go ahead and proceed. Those students who are Nsfas students who have historic debt, allow them in. We'll sort this out. So at WITS we've done that. Many other institutions have done that. What they have not said is anything about students who have historic debt that are the missing middle, those that didn't qualify for Nsfas. So when somebody comes here and says, we're going to sort the historic debt, what you mean is you're going to sort the historic debt of Nsfas students, not missing middle. In WITS, our challenge is missing middle students. That's where there's a historic debt, and we've been told very clearly that we need to address it. The easiest thing that I can do for you is to say to my executives, let's give in. We can give in. We're sitting at 500 million worth of debt. In the system, we're sitting with 10 billion rand worth of debt. And then I'll look good for this year and next year. And then in 3 or 4 years, when you have an ESCOM scenario where you're sitting on a toxic number of debt, 30 billion that's going to threaten the entire system, then everybody's going to cry. We're trying to do the right thing. So I would like to see politicians, all of them, come here and say, we can resolve the Nsfas debt.
But have those conversations not been taking place?
Well, they have.
Around the missing middle in particular?
Clearly, there isn't a problem that government has found to resolve the missing middle challenge. It needs to say that. You need to be honest about it. Don't give misleading messages. Say, we can do the Nsfas debt. We can't resolve this. In this context, we'll come to it next year, or this is what we expect you to do. But the university can't make that problem go away. Let's take accommodation. WITS University has 6,200 beds. There are 14,000, the demand is for 14,000. Effectively, we're lucky. We're better off than most institutions, like Venda in Toyondo, etc., where they don't have private sector providers. We have 8,000 beds in the Braamfontein area. But what those are private sector, they want to be paid. In that context, we made some money available, this hardship fund, to assist in that regard. But we can only do so much. The accommodation problem is a structural problem in the system. It can't be resolved by a single university. We need to admit this. Don't give misleading messages. When the deputy minister says, what he says is it can be resolved, people are just not engaging. That's a misrepresentation. It's unacceptable.
So what you're saying is that even when the minister makes the announcement, which the deputy minister said she is going to do after the budget, it will not resolve the fundamental problem of the missing middle. Because what they are talking about from where you sit is already the people who are being catered for in any case by Nsfas.
I have got an email here on this year, I'll show it to you now, that it says that the problem we will resolve by the 1st of March is the debt, historical debt of Nsfas students, not missing middle. So let's be honest. Actually, that's important. And for me, that's the big message I want to say. All politicians, not only government, frankly, I'm talking about the Department of Higher Education officials, I'm talking about politicians like the EFF and the ANC, be honest. Because by creating misrepresentations in the public domain, you're creating chaos at our institutions. And if we disrupt those institutions again, you're going to destroy these institutions. And then you'll have the mess that we have in primary and secondary education, in tertiary education. Let's start being honest. Let's say what we can resolve and what we can't. Let's be honest with the nation. And it's important that the nation starts demanding that the politicians behave and stop using our universities as a place for proxy battles between themselves.
Vice-Chancellor's dilemma, I don't know what you think. But Professor Adam Habib, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand, on the back, of course, of that interview we had last night where the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Buti Manamela, said all problems have been resolved except, of course, the issue of the historic debt. But as you heard from Professor Habib, the problem is in fact far from resolved.